On October 18th, 31 AD, beneath a suffocating sky heavy with tension, the city of Rome executed one of its most calculated and savage betrayals, turning against a man who had spent years positioning himself at the very center of imperial power. Lucius alias Sejanus, prefect of the Praetorian Guard, had risen from relative obscurity to become the most influential figure in the empire, controlling access to Emperor Tiberius and effectively deciding who lived, who fell, and who would never be heard again. Yet in Rome, dominance inevitably breeds suspicion, and as rumors began to circulate that Sejanus intended to seize the throne itself, the emperor, watching from afar, prepared a response not of warning, but of sudden and irreversible destruction. Summoned to the Senate under the illusion of recognition, Sejanus entered expecting honor, but instead stood motionless as a letter from Tiberius was read aloud, transforming him in seconds from Rome's most powerful protector into its most condemned traitor. Without trial, without defense, and without even the time to fully comprehend the collapse of his world, he was seized by guards, while senators who had once trembled in his presence now shouted for his death with desperate, performative loyalty. The execution itself was brutally efficient, as a garrote was tightened around his neck, cutting off breath, then blood, until his body slackened into lifelessness. Yet in Rome, death was rarely the conclusion. It was often only the beginning of something far worse. His corpse, discarded near the Gemonian stairs, became an object of collective vengeance, as a crowd, long suppressed by fear, surged forward with a fury that blurred the line between justice and primal violence. For 3 relentless days, the people returned in waves, ripping flesh apart with bare hands, stamping bone into fragments, reducing what had once commanded fear into something unrecognizable, a spectacle fueled by years of silent resentment. By the end, nothing remained intact. Not limbs, not torso, not identity, only scattered remnants absorbed into the stones of Rome, as if the city itself had consumed him entirely. But Rome's cruelty did not end with the man, as his children were dragged into the same merciless machinery, their deaths carefully orchestrated to comply with law, while still delivering maximum humiliation and terror. Nearly 2 centuries later, on March 11th, 222 AD, another ruler would experience a downfall so degrading that it stripped away not only power, but every illusion of imperial dignity in a single, suffocating moment. Emperor Elagabalus, barely 18, had alienated every pillar of Roman society through excess and unpredictability, and now, abandoned by allies and targeted by his own protectors, he found himself hiding in the most unthinkable place imaginable. Inside a camp latrine, surrounded by filth and decay, he crouched beside his mother, clinging to the desperate belief that even soldiers would hesitate to search such degradation. But desperation sharpens cruelty, not restraint. The guards entered without hesitation, striking immediately, their blades cutting through flesh in the cramped, suffocating darkness, where blood mixed with waste, and the emperor died in a state that erased all remnants of grandeur. Yet humiliation did not end with death, as their bodies were decapitated, dragged across the streets, and displayed as objects of contempt, a warning that even emperors could be reduced to nothing more than discarded refuse. Thrown into a sewer to vanish, the body resurfaced, as if rejecting oblivion itself, only to be cast again into the Tiber River, where the current finally carried away what Rome refused to remember. On April 8, 217 AD, Emperor Caracalla, a man feared for his cruelty and instability, discovered that even absolute authority cannot shield a man from the consequences of a single unguarded moment. Traveling through Mesopotamia with overwhelming military presence, he halted his procession for a basic human need, stepping away alone, following protocol that valued privacy over protection. In that brief window of isolation, a soldier named Julius Marcialis, fueled by resentment and humiliation, recognized an opportunity that power itself could not defend against. The knife struck deep into the emperor's back, collapsing him instantly, as blood and dust merged into a silent testament to how quickly dominance can dissolve into vulnerability. Though the assassin was killed moments later, the symmetry of their deaths, two men, bound by violence, lying lifeless on the same stretch of road, revealed the fragility beneath Rome's illusion of control. Years earlier, on June 9, 53 BC, Marcus Licinius Crassus, driven by ambition and the hunger for military glory, marched into Parthian territory, seeking to rival legends through conquest. Instead, he found himself encircled, his army exhausted and collapsing under pressure, forcing him into negotiations that concealed a carefully constructed trap. Violence erupted without warning, cutting him down amidst confusion, ending not just his life, but the illusion that wealth alone could command respect on the battlefield. In a final act of symbolic vengeance, molten gold was poured into his mouth, a grotesque punishment reflecting the greed that had defined his rise. His severed head would later be displayed during a theatrical performance, transforming Rome's richest man into a prop, a chilling reminder that even power can be repurposed into entertainment. On December 7, 43 BC, Cicero, whose words had shaped the Republic, fled not from armies, but from the consequences of his own voice. When captured, he offered no resistance, extending his neck with quiet acceptance, understanding that eloquence held no weight against steel. His head and hands were displayed publicly, silencing the instruments that had once commanded Rome's attention, and in a final act of vengeance his tongue was mutilated, ensuring that the voice which challenged power would never speak again. On January 15, 69 AD, Emperor Galba entered the Forum believing authority could still command obedience, unaware that loyalty had already shifted. The attack was immediate, his guards scattering, leaving him exposed as blades ended his life within seconds. His severed head was paraded and mocked, transforming imperial image into grotesque spectacle. On September 18, 96 AD, Emperor Domitian's paranoia finally materialized into betrayal from within. A trusted servant concealed a weapon beneath bandages, approaching close enough to strike where the emperor least expected. Though Domitian fought fiercely, the arrival of conspirators ensured his death through overwhelming force. Finally, on March 28, 193 AD, Emperor Pertinax stood before enraged soldiers, choosing reason over escape. His speech was cut short by a spear, followed by a storm of violence that ended his life. His severed head was raised as a symbol, and in the aftermath, the throne itself was sold, proving that in Rome, power was never permanent. It was merely temporary survival.